All right, let's dive in. Ready for another deep dive? We're tackling a question that never gets old. How do you tell the real deal from the fakers? The folks who are actually changing the world versus the ones who are just really good at, well, lining their pockets.
Yeah, it's a question that feels even more relevant these days, right? I mean,
Right.
with all the influencers and online personalities, it seems like charisma can be just as powerful as actual results, sometimes even more so.
It really does feel that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So to really get into that whole dynamic, we're going to be looking at Emory and Andrew Tate, a father and son who, well, took very different paths in life and whose reputations are, let's just say, worlds apart.
We've got Emory Tate, a chess master who was known for his brilliance, but also for his generosity, especially in the chess world. And then you've got his son, Andrew, the internet personality who, let's face it, rose to fame through controversy, some extreme views, and this really carefully constructed image of, wealth and masculinity.
So what we're trying to figure out today is, were they driven by genuine talent and passion? Or was there something more, calculated going on? Are we talking brilliance or manipulation? Or maybe, just maybe, a little bit of both.
All right, let's start unraveling this. We'll begin with Emory Tate, the chess master. Born in Chicago, 1958, he wasn't just good at chess, he was a force of nature.
He won the U.S. Armed Forces Championship 5 times. That's not just some casual, I play on the weekends kind of skill.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is that his genius wasn't limited to just chess. During his time in the military, he picked up languages like it was nothing. He became fluent in quite a few, and supposedly he was even better than native speakers.
I've heard those stories too. It's almost like his brain was hardwired to just absorb and master complex systems, whether it was chess or a new language, it didn't matter.
Right. And that leads us to his chess style, which was anything but typical. Emory was known for these aggressive, unpredictable moves. He'd often sacrifice pieces in a way that seemed reckless, but it was all part of a deeper strategy.
Can you imagine being his opponent? You'd never know what was coming next.
He wasn't just playing to win, he was putting on a show. This dynamic exchange that pushed the boundaries of what people thought was possible in chess. And he won over 80 games against grandmasters. So clearly his approach, even though it was unconventional, it worked.
Totally. But for all that competitive spirit, Emory was also super dedicated to making chess accessible. Not just for the elite. He'd teach young players, share his knowledge, and just really seemed to love the game. I read somewhere that he would play chess, like for small stakes, with anyone who was interested, even beginners. It was like he wasn't afraid to share his passion.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It really speaks to a certain humility, a desire to connect with people through chess, which, is so different from that kind of exclusive, sometimes even intimidating image that a lot of people have of the professional chess world.
And get this, apparently, he didn't even like to study from chess books. He preferred to just go with his intuition, those in-the-moment calculations. It's almost like he saw chess as this, like, conversation and improvisation instead of something you just memorize from a book.
Like the game was about more than winning for him. It was about exploring those possibilities, the creative potential that's hidden within the rules of the board. But sadly, we lost this brilliant mind way too soon. Emory passed away from a heart attack in 2015 during a tournament.
What a loss for the chess community. Now, Emory's son, Andrew, who was born in '86, well, he took a much different path. It's one that's kind of tangled up in success and controversy. He was kickboxing champ, then he became a reality TV star on Big Brother in the UK. But it's really his online presence that launched him into the spotlight.
And it's with Andrew that we really start to see how vision, ambition, and manipulation can all get mixed up, especially in the online world. He's built this persona that's all about getting rich, masculinity, and to be honest, some pretty provocative, even offensive views.
Right. It's almost like he took that drive, that strategic thinking from his dad, but then applied it to a completely different world. One where going viral and getting attention often beats, nuance and ethical behavior.
His online ventures are all over the place. Webcam studios, which he started with his brother, Tristan, then these programs like Hustlers University, The Real World, The War Room. They all promise to give you the blueprint for success, for self-improvement.
But let's be real. We can't ignore the big controversy around Andrew Tate. His ideas about gender roles, what he calls traditional masculinity, have been criticized a lot. I mean, a lot of people see them as incredibly damaging, promoting toxic masculinity, even misogyny.
Yeah, and it's not just talk. He's been accused of human trafficking and organized crime in Romania, which is what led to his arrest back in 2022. He was released from house arrest in August of this year, but those charges, they're still pending.
Some of the things he said about women, like belonging to men, and, justifying violence against women in certain situations have gotten him a lot of, and rightfully so, condemnation. He was even banned from platforms like Instagram and Facebook because of it, though he did get back on Twitter last year.
It paints a complicated picture. On the one hand, he's this self-made millionaire, living a lavish lifestyle, preaching about being self-reliant, ambitious. But under that carefully constructed image, there are these deeply troubling views and accusations that we just can't sweep under the rug.
It's definitely a head-scratcher. He cultivates this hyper-masculine alpha male image, but then he converts to Islam in 2022, seemingly out of the blue. It's a religion that's often associated with traditional values, discipline. Doesn't seem like it fits with some of his earlier statements, does it?
The conversion itself sparked a ton of debate. Was it sincere? Some people saw it as another calculated move,
Right.
aligning himself with certain values that might resonate with a new audience, maybe help him deflect some of that criticism.
Interesting. So here we have these two figures, father and son, both achieving success, but in totally different ways and with very different consequences.
And as we keep digging into their stories, we'll be looking for clues, for anything that can help us answer that question. Are we looking at true visionaries? Or have we been expertly manipulated?
When you think about the parallels and the differences between Emory and Andrew, it really gets you thinking about legacy, about the impact someone has. Emory's world, it was all about the mind, strategic brilliance on the chessboard.
And Andrews, well, it's a lot more in your face, wouldn't you say? It's all about self-promotion, making bold statements, and a very, very aggressive approach to, well, just about everything, really, business especially.
But here's the thing. Andrew has often talked about how much he admired his father's intelligence. He's even said that Emory was the smartest person he's ever met. So you have to wonder, right? How much did Emory influence Andrew? Especially when you see how different their methods are, how they present themselves to the world. It's true. They're almost like two sides of the same coin, Both found success, but the paths they chose, things they valued, they're just so different.
And that brings up the age-old question of nature versus nurture. How much of who we are is already decided by our genes, and how much comes from how we're raised, the experiences we have?
Well, Emory had that disciplined military background, right? He was a sergeant in the U.S. Air Force. All that structure, that focus, it obviously had an impact on him, and I think you can see that in his chess career, too. But Andrew, he was exposed to, well, the world of professional fighting. And then he jumps right into that online hustle culture where it's all about bravado, self-promotion above all else.
Yeah, and it is a different kind of battlefield, isn't it? For Emory, success was measured in wins, beating those grandmasters, those subtle moves on the chessboard. But with Andrew, it's all about followers, the views, and ultimately, the money.
It's like they're playing two totally different games, different rules, but they're both, in a way, using that same strategic thinking, that ambition.
Which brings us back to that central question, the one we keep coming back to. Legacy. How will these men be remembered? What mark have they truly left on the world?
I think with Emory, it's a bit more straightforward, right? He's remembered for what he brought to the world of chess. His personality, people found him inspiring, and that dedication to sharing his passion. He's seen as a real talent, a master of his craft. Someone who never lost sight of, well, the simple joy of the game.
But even with Emory, it's not completely clear-cut. Some people found his confidence, how sure he was of himself during matches. They thought it was a bit arrogant, which just shows you, even the people we consider good, they're complex. We all see things differently, right? What one person admires, another might find a bit too much.
That's true. And then there's Andrew. His legacy is, well, let's just say it's a lot more complicated, a lot more contested. He's built this huge following, made a lot of money, that's for sure. But the tactics he's used, the things he says, they've also caused a lot of, well, anger and concern.
You have people who really admire his entrepreneurial spirit. They like how he doesn't apologize for wanting to be rich, how he challenges what everyone else thinks is the right way to do things. To them, he's a symbol of success in a world where the old rules, they just don't work anymore. He's like an anti-hero for the digital age.
But then you have the other side. People who call him a misogynist, a manipulator, even a dangerous influence on young men who are drawn to that message of dominance and money being the most important things.
It's tricky. Is he a product of the times, of the internet? Someone who's just using whatever's popular to get rich and powerful, not really caring about the consequences? Or is there something real in what he teaches, something valuable that gets hidden behind that, that persona he puts on, that in-your-face personality online?
Is he just a really good businessman who knows how to market himself in a world that's obsessed with attention? Or is he intentionally using harmful ideas to take advantage of people and make money?
It's a question we all have to think about, and there isn't one easy answer. But I think looking at both Emory and Andrew, it helps us understand this bigger idea of influence and responsibility, especially now with social media being such a huge part of our lives.
It's not just about them, is it? It's about how we, as people, taking in all this information, how we navigate a world where charisma and controversy, they go hand in hand. A world where the loudest voices, well, they aren't always the wisest or the most ethical.
Exactly. That's one of the most important things to remember here. We need to develop those critical thinking skills, the ability to really look at all these messages we see every day and figure out what's actually valuable and what might just be, well, harmful manipulation disguised as something good, like self-improvement or empowerment.
So how do we do that? How do we get better at seeing through all of that and not falling for, well, a con artist who's just really good at being charming?
I think it starts with asking the right questions.
So how do we do that? How do we get better at seeing through all of that and not falling for, well, a con artist who's just really good at being charming?
I think it starts with looking beyond the surface,
Hmm.
beyond that persona they create. All the flashy stuff, the money, the success. We have to go deeper, look at their actions, what's motivating them, and the real impact they're having.
Because talk is cheap,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Especially online. Anyone can say anything, but do their words actually match up with what they do?
Exactly. And a really important question to ask is who benefits from what they're saying? Who profits from their influence? Is it actually helping the people who follow them, or is it mostly about making themselves richer?
It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, with Emory and Andrew. Emory, yeah, he was ambitious, but his success was also tied to this real love for chess, this desire to share it with other people. He wanted to make it accessible. He wanted to help people get better. With Andrew, it seems a lot more focused on, well, himself, on getting more money, more power.
And that's not to say that wanting those things, being ambitious, is bad. But it's important to look at the reasons behind it. Are they trying to create something that has value, that benefits the world, or is it just about personal gain?
Right, right, which brings us back to that very first question. How do you tell a visionary from a con artist? It's tough, especially when you add in charisma and how good some people are at, well, twisting the truth to get what they want.
It's true. It's not about saying someone is all good or all bad. People are complicated. We all have different sides to us.
Even Emory, who, from what we know, was a genuinely good person, even he had people who didn't like him. Some thought he was too confident. It just goes to show you everyone sees things differently. What one person admires, another person might find, well, not so admirable.
Absolutely. And I think the main takeaway here is we can't just passively absorb information, especially in the digital world. There are so many messages coming at us all the time, trying to get our attention, trying to get us to do certain things.
We have to think critically. We have to ask questions. We have to be willing to challenge our own assumptions, what we believe to be true, even if it's something we want to believe. And we can't just believe something because it's said with confidence or because it makes us feel good.
It's about protecting ourselves, protecting ourselves from being manipulated. And it's about making sure that the people we support, the people whose voices we amplify, those people, they're actually living by our values, that they're trying to make the world a better place.
Okay, so as we wrap up, what are some of the key things you hope our listeners will remember from today?
I hope they remember that success doesn't automatically make someone a good person. Just because someone is rich or famous or has a lot of influence, that doesn't mean they're a force for good.
It's like, what's that saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Right. We have to be careful about who we let influence us. And we have to be willing to really look at the things we see and hear, especially online, and decide for ourselves if it's true, if it's something we should believe.
That's great advice. So the next time you come across someone online or in person who's super charismatic, who's making big promises, just take a step back, ask yourself those questions, look beyond the surface, and trust your gut feeling.
Because there are people out there who are truly visionaries, who are trying to make the world a better place. But there are also a lot of people who are really good at manipulating others, who just want to take advantage of you, get your attention, and make money.
Well said. And that brings our deep dive to a close for today. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And remember, keep asking questions, keep digging deeper, and don't let anyone dull your critical thinking skills.